Hey, are you ready to make a hydrometer? Um, you're going to need to gather some materials, a sharp pencil. If it's not perfectly sharp, sharpen it. A piece of index card and a ruler. All right, the directions to start tell you to cut glass. We're going to do that actually as step 2. Number 2 says to work with the glass. So we're actually going to start with number 3, where it tells us to use a sharp pencil to carefully mark the edge of an index card. We're going to place a mark every 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to go to an edge of an index card. So here's my piece of index card. You want to take the cleaner edge of the two. If you need to, we can cut a clean edge with a paper cutter, but I'm going to draw a line parallel to the edge. Okay, so here I go, draw a line all the way down along here. Okay, and then my next step is to take the ruler and make sure you're using the inch side, and every 16th we're going to make a mark, and we're going to do that all along the entire length of this card. So I'm going to lay this out right there. You want to be as neat as possible. Just draw a line straight across. And every 1/16, and just do it all the same, nice and clean. And I'll finish this and be right back. Hey, I've finished. I've put markings every 16th of an inch for the entire length of this card. My next step says make every 5th mark darker. And in fact, what I'm going to do is use a colored pencil so it really stands out to make it easier to read. So I'll be back in a moment with a colored pencil. Just as with this pencil, you want to make it a sharp colored pencil. And I'm going to mark every 5th line. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get the idea. All right, I'm done marking every 5th line with a colored pen. I'm having a focusing issue. There it is. So my next step is to take a different color pen. This time I'm going to use a red one, and I'm going to make a mark on my 3rd dark line. So not this one or this one, but right there. 3rd dark line. Right on top of my purple, I'm going to put red because that's an important spot. Okay, so that step is done. My next step is to carefully cut along this line so I have a strip that's the scale, and that scale is going to go into the tube we're going to make in the next step. So I'll be right back with the scissors. Now I have my scissors. I'm just going to carefully cut right along that line. Whether or not I see that line, it doesn't really matter. I just need a nice skinny scale that's going to fit into the glass tube that we're about to make. So this is my finished scale. Okay, and we're going to come back to it in a little bit, but our next step is to prepare a glass tube. Be right back. Now we're actually to the step 1. It says cut glass tubing 13 centimeters long. I've prepared a piece of tape for you to measure. Our glass tubing comes in long lengths, and we have to cut it to the right length. So I want to cut it right there. So I'll use my fingernail, my thumbnail, as a guide for this file. And this file, you'll want to feel on the corner for the kind of the sharpest or most grippy, like right there. There's a lot of grip to it, so I'm going to use that edge right there to kind of bite into the glass. I'm just kind of firmly pushing, and it just seems to be sliding past. It doesn't seem to be doing anything, so I'm going to turn to a different corner. Still slipping, so maybe this corner. And it usually doesn't take this long. I'll be right back. I'm back, once again, using my thumbnail as a guide. I'm pushing firmly, going back and forth. I don't have to go far. What I'm trying to do is put a nick in the glass, and I can feel the file digging into the soft glass. So right now, you can see a little nick right there. And that nick is what I'm going to point away from myself, and I'm going to quickly, well, I didn't quite go far enough, so I'm going to go a little further on that same nick. Ideally, we want a nice clean break, so I'm pointing the nick away from me. It still doesn't want to go. So be patient, make sure you're only making one nick. Yeah, I can feel it digging in now. That should be good. There. So I got a nice clean break, and I'm ready for the next step. Now that I have my glass tube cut, it's time to do a couple things. The directions will tell you to close one end, seal one end, and fire polish the other. So take the better of the two edges, so this one looks better, and we're going to close that up. In order to do that, we're going to use a Bunsen burner. Now, if you're watching this, make sure to keep your MacBook far away from your Bunsen burner, because you'll melt the screen, the back of the screen, and that wouldn't be a good thing. Remember, when you're using a Bunsen burner, you need to wear goggles and apron, tie your hair back, roll up those sleeves. The first thing you want to do is close the air valve and close the gas valve. Turn on the gas fixture. Put this by your ear, turn it, listen for a hiss, and quickly light it. So there, I've got a flame. This flame is just worthless. Can't use it for anything, so we need to add some air. So I'm adjusting it so we get some more air in, and I want a roaring fire. You can hear it, right? All right, so if my thumb represents the flame, I want to put this glass tube in the hottest part of the flame, which is that inner blue cone, and I want to have it at a 45-degree angle. In the whole time, I'm going to have my hands way back here, away from the heat, and I'm going to spin it, okay? And do your best to keep your the tube in there once it starts heating up. Otherwise, the glass turns harder and it doesn't work nearly as well. So what I'm doing is turning it the whole time, 45-degree angle, at the hottest part in the inner blue cone. And in a moment, the glass is going to start to glow red. And then I'm going to keep an eye on the hole, and the hole is going to keep on closing up. So I'm going to, I can see the hole's getting smaller. Maybe if I do it this angle, it'll work better. It's getting smaller. I'm keeping it in there. And you want that hole to get so small that it touches on both sides, and then the glass will stick together. You can only do this with one person at a time, because if the two glass tubes stick together or touch, they'll stick together. And I think I'm done right now. So I'm going to pull it out, and you notice it's glowing red hot, but right now it's not glowing red hot, and if I touch that, it's still really hot, it'll burn me. That's how 8th graders get burned. So what I'm going to do is set this aside and go on to the next step when it's cool. Now that it's cooled, I'm going to heat this end up till the glass starts to glow, and then take it out. And then once the glass starts to glow, it'll melt a little bit, and it'll take off that sharp edge. Can you see that sharp edge? It'll take that sharp edge and round it off. So here I go. Once again, 45-degree angle, and rotate the tube the entire time. Wait until it glows, and then we'll take it out. Okay, I can see it's starting to glow, and I'm going to take it out. And if we look at that edge, it's rounded now. So it's a little safer to use. Okay? Next step. Now that my tube is cooled again, And you can tell if it's cooled or not by using the back of your hand to touch it. That way, if it's too hot, and it's plenty good for me, if it's too hot, you might burn your hand, the back of your hand, but it won't be too painful. If you burn your sensitive fingers, that is painful. So I'm taking this scale, and that's the red mark I prepared. 3 marks down, I have a red mark. It doesn't matter what color, but it's a different color. That red mark needs to be up towards the sealed end. So I'm just going to slide this scale right into the tube. And I need to cut it off because it's a little bit too long. So what I want it is to be 1 mark up inside of the tube, because if you see how straight that is, that's how we want it. And what I'm going to use a little putty to hold it into place. So I'm going to cut it right at that big mark right there, and that should be about right. Now it'll want to fall out, so what we want to do is plug that. And to plug it, you're just going to take a little piece of this molding putty and just put a little tiny bit in there, just enough to plug the hole, okay? And we want the scale straight, so the scale's still straight. If you put too much in there, it'll bend and be all curvy. It won't be as nice. All right, the next step, I need to get myself a rubber stopper. Now, it's a good idea to have a beaker to set your glass tube in whenever you're not using it, because it'll roll off the table and break, then you have to do all that work again. What we want to do is put that glass tube inside this stopper. Problem is glass doesn't like to slide against rubber, it kind of sticks. So what we need to do is lubricate it a little bit. And for that, we're using this oil called glycerin. Now, it's a stopper bottle, but you don't actually have to squeeze this. You're just gonna, it's sitting in oil, and all you need is that little bit of oil that's already on that dropper. And I'm just putting it in there to lubricate it to allow this glass tube to slide in. And you're gonna slide it in the fatter end. It's the end that looks cut because we shortened these a little bit. And you just wanna push it in and turn it until it sticks out the other end. All right, that's all there is to that stage. So there's my scale inside the glass tube. Okay, next step. Now it's time to get yourself a test tube. Okay, keep the test tube in the beaker all the time from now on. Anytime if you lay it on the table, it's going to roll right off. So the beaker is just kind of a nice test tube holder. So you're going to get this test tube, and you're going to go up to the front of the class of your instructor, and they will give you some lead shot. And we want 2 milliliters of lead shot. And make sure so your instructor will give this to you, but make sure you pour and do this over a tray or something, because the lead shot is round, it's like a little ball, and it'll roll all over, and we don't want them all over. So you're gonna get about that much shot, and then you're gonna put your test tube, or excuse me, your scale in there, and firmly put this down. We're gonna have to open it up and close it a number of times, but that's our hydrometer. Basically, a hydrometer is a bobber, but it's a really long bobber, and it floats higher in dense water and lower in less dense water. And then wherever it floats on the scale, we can read it and figure out the density of the water it's floating in. So we need to calibrate this. That means set it so that it's reading 0, and the 0 point is right there. So the 0 point represents 1.000 grams per milliliter. That's the density of water. So what we need to do is float this in a tube of water and adjust the number of shot so that it floats in the water right there. Once that's the case, you have a working hydrometer. Okay? So I'll get a tube of water to start calibrating. Now that I have my tube of water, I'm going to carefully place my hydrometer in the tube. Notice how the water level is going up, and it's going to spill out if I let it go. So I'm going to drain a little bit of the water just to prevent a mess. If you spill, no big deal, clean it up. And we're going to put it in there, and it sank to the bottom, which means I have too much lead shot. So that means I need to drain this, grab this, and take some of the BBs out. Those BBs need to go in the container at your table for somebody else to use, okay? So I'll be right back. Now this hydrometer, I just took it out of the water. It's all dripping wet. Water's the enemy of this. We don't want any water inside here. So every time you have to adjust it, you need a paper towel or a rag to dry it. So I'm going to dry this thoroughly before I remove some lead shot. So now I've thoroughly dried my test tube and my scale, and I'm going to remove, I don't know, it's a good idea to count. So I'm going to remove 5. Let's see, 5. That is actually 6. So keeping those extra ones in the tray, because I might need some back. There's still water up here, so always try to keep everything dry. And put this back and put it nice and tight so we don't get water in there. And we're ready to try it again. So I just took 6 out, and I'll put it back in the tube now. I set it in again, and hopefully she doesn't sink. But I'm going to put my finger there just in case. Yep, it's still sinking. So I'm going to remove even more. Apparently more than 6. Once again, drawing between each. This time I've removed 10 shots. So that's a total of 16 I've gotten rid of. And still wants to sink. So I'll be back with fewer shots. I've removed more. I'll try it again. So now it's floating too high. Now it's, we want it floating here, which means it's got to go down quite a bit. So I'm going to add some shot. This is where it's important to count. So if you're getting close, you're going to put in fewer. So right now I'm thinking 3 might be the right number. We'll give it a try. Once again, this is kind of tedious, but it's important that you dry it every time. And I'll be right back. I've removed 3 shot and given it another try. Okay, getting close. I added 3 shot. Okay, now I'm getting pretty close. So I think I probably want to add 1 or maybe 2. I guess I'll try 2 this time. I've added 2 more shot, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I'm getting really close. I'm about 8 marks, or maybe 9 marks from the red floating at the right spot. So that means I probably want to add just 1 more shot. Be right back. After numerous trials, I've got it so it's 1 or 2 marks away. It looks like it's 2 marks a little too heavy. Okay, so ideally what I'm going to do is take 1 shot out. That'll make it go up a little higher, and then if I have to, I can adjust the how much of the glass tube is shoved into the rubber stopper. So I'll do that now.